Who could have seen it coming? That's right, we could. Kathleen Kennedy's Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny is coming under the worst case scenario for the box office. You heard it here first before it ever happened. And now it has. It brings us no joy, though. We wish we could have watched Harrison Ford, John Williams, and the rest go out on a high point. It would have been fantastic to watch Indiana Jones ride off into a sunset that he deserves. But that has not happened, and we have no joy here. There is no joy in Mudville watching the great slugger strike out. But you know one thing, we're going to talk about it right now. All right, folks, welcome back to another fantastic video here on the WDW Pro channel. Again, we are aiming for excellence. Sometimes we do not hit it, but we try each and every time because we endeavor to explain entertainment and keep you ahead of the culture curve. Folks, if you like content like that, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe, and when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Joining me to discuss the box office for this weekend, in which Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny is now landing lower than any projection seen before, is Lauren Connor of That Park Place. He is a Star Wars, Indiana Jones, and Lucasfilm guru. Lauren, welcome back.
Thank you, sir. Pleased to be here.
All right, Lauren, we're going to hop straight into this article out of The Hollywood Reporter. This by one of our favorites, Pamela McClintock. Box office, Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny digging up $60 million opening after $24 million Friday. Folks, remember that $65 million was previously the worst case scenario. Now, here on this channel, and Lauren can tell you because we had a shocking moment where Lauren said it cannot go that low. My prediction is that this could drop below 60 when we're done, and this could be in the $50 million range. Now, we're not saying down at 50, we're saying in the 50s. That's been a prediction I've had for a long time, saying it's 55 to 75, but probably leaning down lower. Now we're there. Harrison Ford returns as the adventurous archaeologist in the fifth and final installment in the series. Unfortunately, he's not very adventurous in this one. Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny dug up $24 million at the Friday box office for a projected weekend debut in the $60 million range. That would put the opening on the low end of projections, i.e. lower than they ever said, underscoring that the target audience, older adults, remains a demo that's difficult to lure back to cinemas. Oh, unless you're Tom Cruise. Friday's haul includes $7.2 million in previews. Disney and Lucasfilm's long-delayed final and fifth installment in the adventure action series will easily top the domestic box office chart heading into the long July 4th weekend. The filmmakers are still hoping for a domestic launch closer to $65 million. Ooh, that's bad. If you're hoping for the worst-case scenario as of a week ago, this is perhaps being downplayed how bad this is. At $83 million or more through Tuesday, but a B-plus cinema score and tepid reviews could hamper word of mouth. One bright spot is the 88% positive audience score on Rotten Tomatoes. Friday's audience skewed notably male, while 42% of ticket buyers were 45 and older, including 23% 55 and older. That's a breakdown rarely seen when it comes to a Hollywood summer tentpole. Not sure you can call this a tentpole now. Even before the pandemic, older moviegoers weren't known for rushing out to see a movie on opening weekend. All right, Lauren, so that we are now at that point, we have failed to reach the worst case scenario that was presented all this time that we've been seeing. The numbers have collapsed. This was never supposed to happen. And again, this is one of the most expensive films ever made. It could be one of the biggest blunders from Hollywood that we've ever seen. They have attempted, in some articles, although we will not call those out this time, but they've attempted to move this down to $250 million for a budget, but we know that's not true. They have claimed that it's $295 million, but we also don't believe that's true because Valiant Renegade has been reporting that based on everything that he has seen and looked at the equations, this is somewhere around $332 million, and that's the baseline. That's the starting point. That may not encompass every expenditure that went into it. It's also not including a massive marketing spend, having screenings all over the world, and doing everything they could to bring in any critic available who could raise that Rotten Tomatoes score, including open bars before those private screenings. We know that from people like Chris Gore of Film Threat and Polly from Latino Slant. Lauren, we're here now. What do you make of this very, very poor opening for Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny?
Well, I have to preface this by saying I have not watched the film. I'm not going to watch the film. So I can't speak to the actual content of the film.
Well,
But I
that
think
actually that makes you perfect for this conversation, Lauren, because you can tell us why the vast majority of people are just like you.
I that's clever. I think the main question you've got to ask is who is this movie made for? It's they tried to get away with this 15 years ago when they did Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, and they were pushing it then. Indiana Jones is a beloved character, but he's been faded from the scene for quite some time now. The demographic that you're trying to hit, as the article stated, is not those that rush out to the theater, especially when they're already skeptical of what Lucasfilm has been doing and Disney as a whole. That leaves you a younger generation who probably doesn't care about Indiana Jones, which is why they have Fleabag in the movie lecturing him and doing that kind of thing. It just feels like a movie that doesn't have an audience to start with. So, unless there was a real compelling reason to make this movie, other than, gosh, we kind of biffed it with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, you shouldn't have made it. Leave well enough alone.
Hey folks, pardon the interruption. July 3rd, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We're going to host a special live stream. It's a special one-time event, a celebration of all nations, but mostly America. There, we'll also be celebrating many of our friends who have reached major milestones on their channels. You're not going to want to miss it. We'll talk about Indy and more. Hang tight, hang in there, and we'll see you July 3rd at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Well, it's funny you should bring up the Crystal Skull, Lauren, because that's where we are going next. We go now to Variety. This by J. Kim Murphy. The title of the article is Box Office Indiana Jones: The Dial of Destiny whips up $24 million opening day. But that's not where we're going. We're dropping down to another paragraph that is important. Here's the paragraph we need to look at within this one. The last feather in Indy's cap was Indiana Jones and the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, which opened to $100 million of the Memorial Day holiday in 2008 and lagged out to a $790 million worldwide gross. That film drew its own middling reception, which may have taken away some of the thrill of the franchise for audiences. It'll be difficult for Dial of Destiny to match the final gross of its predecessor, i.e. it's impossible, but they don't want to say it yet. Here's the deal, though. 2008, movie ticket prices were about half of what they are today. You know what that means? It means in today's dollars, Crystal Skull would open to $200 million if we adjust for the movie ticket prices of then to now. And that means that if we're gauging this based on audiences, this is tracking closer to about a quarter of the audience that went to see Crystal Skull is coming back to see this film, The Dial of Destiny. Lauren, that is a catastrophic collapse in attendance, in interest, etc. And I've got a thesis, I've got a hypothesis. Let me present it to you. I think that audiences were greatly disturbed by Lucasfilm, by Kathleen Kennedy, with the treatment of Star Wars. I don't think they liked what happened to Han Solo. I don't think they liked what happened to Luke Skywalker. I don't think they liked what happened with anything else that Lucasfilm has done. And I think that they're looking at this and saying, no, I don't believe I'll go back to see the same thing happen again to Harrison Ford. This is Han Solo 2.0. This is, again, a wayward goddaughter, this time instead of a son. But this is a wayward, and this is a situation where the hero is now a grumpy old man who is being chased about all over the planet by offspring that is not keen on him. And then it's sort of like Jake Skywalker as well, because not only do we get the situation that we're discussing here, but in the end of the day, this character doesn't seem to do much at all in terms of saving anybody. He just kind of is along for the ride. So Lauren has let me put it this way. Do you believe that it's more on the Crystal Skull side of things where that movie tarnished the franchise, or do you think that this is Star Wars and Lucasfilm that has tarnished the film and made people say, no, not again?
I think there's another factor. I think for people that follow the film industry and people that are fans of Lucasfilm and not just a particular franchise, then yeah, Star Wars is definitely making people skeptical of what this movie is. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull didn't help things any. It already left a sour taste in people's mouths that they still haven't quite forgotten about. But I'd throw another kind of a simile in there that is not a direct correlation, but it's similar. um, think of a superstar, somebody who was at the height of their game, considered one of the greatest, who at the end of their career has a precipitous decline, and you don't want to remember them that way. I'm talking about Elvis. He was the king of rock and roll, and this was a guy who dominated the charts for 20 years, but near the end, um, he was not remembering his own song lyrics. He didn't look like he was healthy. He didn't look like he should have been on stage. And when you see somebody in that kind of decline, that's not how you want to remember them. And I think that's what a lot of people are looking at when they're seeing Indiana Jones. They're seeing, look, I love this character. I love my memories of this character. If I'm a fan of this series, then this is somebody who's precious to me. I don't want to remember them struggling to try and pretend that they're up to the challenges of yesterday. It's just not the way that you want to leave that memory.
Well, I would have been happy if that had been the issue with the film. If this was an aged hero who is struggling to recapture the magic, I could watch that. There's something to be found in that, right? The movie Rocky Balboa did an excellent job of exploring that.
Yep.
This film, however, takes the position that Indiana Jones, despite all of his adventures and his acumen and his skills, somehow wound up alone and living in a small apartment and banging on rowdy neighbors' kids' doors with a baseball bat.
You
That
know,
is a fatal misstep for the movie.
I'm actually glad you brought up Rocky Balboa because you remember when that movie came out, um, there were a lot of people that were really skeptical about it because it's kind of a similar situation. Rocky Five was not one of the greater movies in the franchise, and there was a long period between Rocky Five and the release of Rocky Balboa. I think when that movie was gearing up to come out, a lot of people were really skeptical about it. But in a lot of ways, they went back to their roots. They did show an aged Rocky, and they put him in a situation in that movie where it's like, look, this isn't a heavyweight championship of the world fight. This is an exhibition fight to show off this other fighter. But I think what really made that movie work was when he finally has the confrontation with his son, Milo
That's exactly right.
Ventimiglia. That speech, every time I see that speech, I've watched that movie I don't know how many times. I get tears in my eyes every time he has that tough love conversation with his son, and that's what made that movie work.
That's the kind of thing that gets you out of bed in the morning when there's not much else to face because you believe that there is something that could happen in the future that will change that. I agree fully with you, Lauren. And it's sad to me. You know, people think, well, pro is negative about Disney, pro is negative about Lucasfilm, and that's why we get these videos. No, this makes me sad. I'm sad that Harrison Ford is not going to get the win that Sly received.
Yeah.
He took out Rocky on high notes, and Harrison Ford does not. He does not have that opportunity, and that leads me to the next conversation point I have for you, Lauren. So this film now, based on we're below nightmare level scenario that Disney and the Hollywood industry had determined was the lowest possible. Now maybe it will manage to rise up to that level, but that's where we're at, where they're hoping to hit nightmare territory. Below that, they're in hell. Well, here's the hell scenario. I'm looking at it now. If this only picks up 60 million or less, I'm going to drop my full weekend assumption on what it would get to 130 worldwide. If that happens, okay? So let's just play out this hypothetical, and in 48 hours, we'll know the truth. Previously, I had disagreed with Pauly of Latino Slant for where he thought this would go. He after he saw it, he said, "I think it's going to get something like 350 million total." And I said, "Impossible. Even I can't be that pessimistic." And so I was saying 450. I'm going to change my tune. If this comes in below the nightmare level scenario for Disney, I think this movie will struggle to reach 400 million. and I think it'll be at 390. Now that brings me then to this question for you, Lauren, and this is something that I think is applicable to all of us and to all of our lives, and maybe it'll make us better to have this conversation. Kathleen Kennedy has been ruling over Lucasfilm for almost 10 years now. People have tried to defend her. They have tried to spin the results. At this point, I think she's fully exposed. She is now ruling over a studio, to whatever degree she is still ruling over it, that is an absolute embarrassment in every way. And Lauren, there is no greater punishment, perhaps, than to put your heart and soul into something and to be rejected. And that studio seems to be putting their heart and soul into attempt after attempt after attempt, and they are being repudiated by the market, by society, by the audiences, repeatedly over and over. That is punishing. Perhaps the only thing worse would be if you do something very well and you are unfairly reprimanded for it. That hurts as well. But in our own personal lives, we can think back to times when we really tried our very best, and we were not only not rewarded, but we were punished for it, and that hurts. And I can only think the people at Lucasfilm must be feeling that way. This is just awful. And here's my question, Lauren. If I'm Kathleen Kennedy, and perhaps she can't think this way, perhaps it's too painful, but if I'm Kathleen Kennedy right now, I would be wondering, is it worth it to rule over hell? Like, do I have to rule over hell if that's the only thing I can rule? Do I rule over hell? Because that's what this studio has become, and that's what these people must be feeling. It is hellacious to give everything you have to create art and to have it just absolutely rejected by the world at large. And there's no other way to frame this now. Lauren, is it time for massive change at Lucasfilm? Is it time to turn this studio into something that is not approximating artistic hell?
I think it's too late. I don't think it's recoverable at this point. And part of the reason for that is I might challenge you on the position that there are artists there who are working there. I think a lot of the people that were the old stalwarts at ILM and Lucasfilm, they're no longer there. They were pushed out. I think you have activists. I think you have partisans. There may be some people that are still there keeping their heads down and just doing the workaday stuff, just making an honest day's living, trying to do what is put in front of them. But they're not making art anymore. That's kind of the unique thing that Lucas had is that he rejected the studio system. He wanted to retain control of it because he wanted to make art and he wanted to lift up artists. He kind of revived in Hollywood a sort of a patronage system, which was kind of amazing within his studio. But they are fully corporate under Disney. They are only interested in cranking out product. And I'm not sure that the end result even matters to them anymore as long as they continue to be able to draw lines of credit and make more product. So as long as they have that mindset, as long as that's Disney's mindset, I don't think Lucasfilm is anything but a name anymore.
Well, there's no money to be made in what they're doing. There's just losses. Even their Disney Plus series Willow was better as a tax write-down than as actual streaming content. So I cannot imagine a worse place to be than what is surely the equivalent of 70s architecture, where it's all square and ugly and made as cheaply as possible, and that being the product of a studio. The only problem with Lucasfilm is, no, they're not making it cheaply. They're creating this dystopian series of works with the highest budgets imaginable. So we'll see where this goes, Lauren, but Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny appears to be in the same vein as Elemental. It is exposing the entire company of Disney. I do not believe that it can be ignored any longer. Surely the company will take action, and if they have to completely wipe the studio and restart all the way over and it be in name only, then so be it, because we've reached that point, and that is the legacy of Kathleen Kennedy. But on a happier note, Lauren, we have some cues from you. This is a fan favorite. It's where we offer Tier 2 and above members of the channel the opportunity to ask us questions. and then we are exceedingly happy to answer them. So, Lauren, if you wouldn't mind, let's go ahead and read these, and then I'll give my answer. Would you do me the honor of reading them?
Absolutely. From Vixaris. Hope I pronounced that right. What are your speculations on the possible success of the Jollywood Party? While not so scary and very merry seem popular, they are getting overpriced in my view, and HS is a much weaker park than MK. So can I guess
Dot.
yeah, that's where it cuts off.
So, what this is referring to, Vixaris is referring to the special event activities that take place in the Magic Kingdom and Hollywood Studios at Walt Disney World after the parks close. And these parks tend to close early so that these special events can occur. And they usually have ticket prices that are higher than even a one-day pass, but they get you all kinds of perks. Now, these tend to sell out. And so, despite what I may think of them, the fact that they're selling out means that Disney will continue to do them because Disney ostensibly likes money. And in terms of what you get out of them, well, if you're there to ride the rides, I think it's worth it because you'll ride the rides with very little lines. In terms of do I like this overall as a concept? Not necessarily, but I'm also not opposed to the market. And so when the market speaks in a certain way, just as we've been talking about Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, I can't be hypocritical and say that, when the market responds so positively to this, that I should be on the opposite side and being negative about it and saying, well, there's a better way. I'm observing that there are many out there who want to do these and that it seems to be popular with the locals. And so we'll let it continue on and we'll cover it and do our best to be positive if it's successful because Disney could use those wins. Oh, we've got another one.
And from Araxis. Hi, this isn't so much a question as it is a request. A lot of times the intro music for the videos is a bit too loud and I have trouble hearing what you were saying. Could we fade the music out faster or just...
Dot, dot, dot. And maybe if I reduce these, we can get these. There we go. So it says, could we fade the music out faster or just down significantly? All the better to hear you. Thanks. Araxis, yes, we can reduce the sound on the video some. We have done that in the past. The problem is that different devices play the audio in different ways. And so that is, we have to always keep in mind that how you may hear it on a small smartphone is different than the person who is listening to it inside their car, is different than the person who's listening to it on their earbuds or headphones, and is different than the person who listens to it on the TV while they're cooking dinner for their kids. And so we're trying to hit the best of all worlds, but we're always trying to aim better for the most people possible. So we'll try it, and we'll see if those if we get some complaints in the opposite direction. If we do, we may have to adjust again. Great question.
And from Space Dave 2000. What are the chances of Disney going into Chapter 11? Their margins of debt versus income versus losses seem astronomically high.
This is not a channel to give you financial advice. If you'd like financial advice, seek out a financial advisor in your area who is credible, accredited, and ready to earn your trust. But Space Dave 2000, in my own simple opinion, which is totally subjective, I think it's less than 1% that Disney would ever go into Chapter 11. I feel very strongly that there would be pressure from inside the company and from investors at large to fix this before we ever reach that point, although we are approaching the bottom of the barrel when it comes to how bad things can get, and I don't know how wide this barrel is. Thanks for the question.
And from Man of WDW. How can Bob sit by and watch Kathleen start another Ray movie, knowing full well he's not going to make money from it? Ridiculous.
Well, the tricky part here is that we actually believe, based on our sources, that Bob is the guy who wanted the Ray movie in the first place. And that's probably to try to fix his legacy issue where he doesn't want to be the one who created a Star Wars trilogy that was poorly received. On the Kathleen Kennedy side of things, we believe that she is attempting to stack the deck on her way out. And we do believe that based on what our sources have told us, although we cannot corroborate it, and it is in the future, which means you never know fully what's going to happen in the future. We all like to believe we can, but we don't. We believe, though, that Kathleen Kennedy is nearing the end of her tenure at Lucasfilm, whatever that means. And we're specifically watching quarter three of 2024 as a potential end phase for that. Good question.
And from Slade Wilson 6180. Given the cans and current critics' reviews calling the film hot garbage in Hollywood speak, do you think that Iger gave KK enough rope and coordinated a few things? This would not be possible without peace and love to my brother Jonas. Insults incoming.
We love watching Slade put Jonas in uncomfortable positions as Jonas is trying to make sure the channel stays PG, and Slade is constantly saying, how can I possibly wiggle him into a different place? But to answer that, it did seem extremely fortuitous if you're on the side of getting rid of Kathleen Kennedy, that Willow was canceled and sent to the Disney Vault permanently, we would assume, and that the Galactic Star Cruiser was closed as she went into the theater at Cannes and as she left the theater. That seems just a little too coordinated for me to not pay attention to, and that, folks, is why you come to this channel, because we're here to explain entertainment and keep you ahead of the culture curve. We are on an adventure together, telling the truth and seeing where that lands us. Who knows what will happen? We're not always in friendly territory, but we endeavor to be on our best behavior so that we get to stick around as long as possible. And let me remind all of you out there that just like these members who sent in these questions, all of you watching right now, you are the electricity that drives all of this. We would do none of it without you. Lauren, as we wrap up this video, where can people find you on this great, big, beautiful web out there?
You can find me at that Park Place. You can find me on Lauren Connor at Twitter and Lauren Connor 9030 on YouTube.
Fantastic. Folks, if you are not yet subscribed to Lauren on YouTube, you might want to be doing that. I have a feeling he's got a future here. We'll see where it takes him as well. And folks, if you like content like this, consider clicking the like button, share, subscribe. And when you click it, you stick it to the algorithms. It's the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. The conversation here comes to a close, but we covet your comments. We care about what you think. Let us know and we may just respond. Wherever you are, whatever you're doing, keep learning, keep growing, and unlike most at Lucasfilm, keep having fun.
Floral, it's time for you to walk the plank.
What? Why?
Because you haven't subscribed to WDW Pro yet. Nor bookmark thatparkplace.com on your web browser to get great articles from great contributors.
What?